Okay, good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining the PSC and the Drug Information Subcommittee joint meeting. As soon as I kind of finish the startup of the meeting, I'm going to just turn my camera off also. So the next slide is the agenda that I have prepared for today's meeting. So hold tight, I am going to, there we go. So basically what we're going to do is last night I sent out some attachment for the emails, including the sign-on information, and I am seeing quite a few names of members that are with us today, and thank you for joining. Because of the virtual nature of the meeting, we have not been really taking quote unquote meeting minutes, but we do have a summary report. So I would just ask those of you who are members of the committee to review the summary report for accuracy, and if there's any modification needed, please let me know. And feel free to do any track changes on the document that I sent out, and that way then I can collect all the information and email it back to me. So the next is I just want to introduce some new members, and then also to talk about the leadership change of the Drug Information Subcommittee. And as usual, I will go through the board of the chair and committee activities. Dan is going to give us some update on the drug interaction initiatives. And there's a couple of projects that I have involved in the last 6 months, which I will highlight. And I hand selected a few of those, which I think is pertinent to something important to share with the committee members. That may be something that you encounter on a daily basis. And then I'm going to hand it over to Andrew to go through the Drug Information Subcommittee reports. Jane, if for any update on the Beacon standardized order set. And then if there's an update on the Digital Engagement Committee. The reason for including this is oftentimes Digital Engagement Committee involve a lot in survey study, etc. So this is an area that I highly encourage our member to think about. We'll briefly on the webpage, and then reviewing the pharmacist liaison assignment list, and then open agenda for any upcoming issues or past issues that members want to bring up for discussions. So as I mentioned, the summary report from the virtual meeting was sent out as an attachment in an email to the member yesterday. So please review and let me know if there's any modification needed. I just want to introduce some new members. So essentially we have 3 new members, Vivian Nguyen from Johns Hopkins, Caitlin Young from University of Michigan, and Jessica Pham from Chapman University. They are all members from the program that we set up with Johns Hopkins, Michigan, and Chapman on having trainees in helping us or supporting us, or exposing them to have opportunity to write up the Section 3 and the drug interaction issues in the SWOG protocol. This program actually, I think we have been very pleased with the outcome, and I certainly feel that we have achieved when we started the program, the educational outcome for the trainees in the program also. So both Vivian and Caitlin are the 2nd year residents at the respective organization, or on a 2-year residency program on clinical research and drug information. Those, as far as I know, the last time I looked, the only 2 ASHP accredited residency program with such topics. However, if any one of you are aware of additional program, please by all means let me know. And Chapman University, part of it is due to my past affiliation and is now continued by Coco Yang. She is in charge of a fellowship program at Chapman University. So Jessica Pham came from that program. So I am not sure if I see anyone, but of course my list here is a little restricted, but I'm trying to check and see if they are on the call. Doesn't look like it, but Coco is. So Coco, do you have anything that you wanted to introduce your fellow? Coco, you are muted in case if you are trying to talk.
Hi, good morning, everyone. So I would like to introduce our new fellow this year, Jessica Pham. So she is a graduate from USC class of 2021, and she just joined us, joined our fellowship this July. So I'm not sure if Jessica attend this meeting or not. So if there anything she want to add more.
Yeah, I have a couple of phone numbers that I can see on the list, but I cannot tell
Okay.
who they are. So, but
Yeah.
I do not see Jessica's name on the
Okay.
list. Yeah.
Yeah, because today is her clinical day, so I'm not sure she is open. Yeah, she
Yeah.
is available.
Right. Okay.
Mhm.
Great. Thank you. And then, of course, Andrew now is taking over as the program resident mentor at University of Michigan. So, Andrew, do you want to give us a little bit more introduction on Caitlin?
Sure. Thank you so much. Yes, so I was the past resident here at the University of Michigan in our 2-year investigational drug and research program. And I agree with Stefan. I think it was a win-win for both sides. It was a great learning experience, and we were able to help the drug information subcommittee. So I think it was a very great value add to our program. I am now going to be mentoring our subsequent residents, and our current PGY2 is Caitlin Young. I believe she's on the call. She's a graduate of the University of Southern California, and then she came here for our 2-year program. So she started her 2nd year this summer and will be participating in writing drug information sections over the course of the year.
Thank you, Andrew, and welcome, Caitlin. So in addition, now Andrew is a full member of our Pharmaceutical Science Committee. He remains at University of Michigan and is currently the research pharmacist specialist. And as he mentioned, he'll be taking over as the program resident mentor. And I also want to take this opportunity to thank you, Kim Reddick. She was the program director. She's still the program director, but she has handed this responsibility over to Andrew. And I wanted to thank you, Kim, for being in brief soul to join in the program with us and make this a success also. And in addition to that, I also want to take this opportunity to say that the success of this program also indicated by Michelle Yu, who graduated from the Johns Hopkins program. And she did not stay at Johns Hopkins, but she's at University of Wisconsin. She has expressed interest to stay on the Pharmaceutical Science Committee. And I explore with the membership committee, and now she's in the process of her application to become a full member. I think I see Michelle on the call. Michelle, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, thank you so much. Like Andrew, I also graduated last year from the program, and not at the University of Wisconsin, at the University Hospital in Madison, Wisconsin, part of their Pharmaceutical Research Center, which is their equivalent of IDS. And I'm very happy to continue to help out with the Drug Information Subcommittee as a part of SWOG, and I look forward to working with many of you in the future as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. And so Michelle's application is in progress, but meanwhile, we we would just welcome her as a member of the committee. And again, I am so thrilled to see the infusion of all this new blood into our committee. And truly, I am very, very thrilled about the outcome of this collaboration. So I hope this will be continuing for years to come. So with that, I also wanted to announce the leadership transition of the Drug Information Subcommittee chair. Ada Ula so has transitioned from University of Colorado to a private protocol management company. So because of her change of position and the nature of her new position, we were not able to maintain her membership as SWOG. I do want to appreciate her effort. I think also we made a bold step to have a non-pharmacist to step up to take the leadership role of this subcommittee. And with Ada's effort and drive, I think she had made a lot of input into the subcommittee and maintain it in good shape also. So even though she's not on the call, but I do want to publicly acknowledge her effort and her contribution to the subcommittee during her tenure as the chair of this subcommittee. And with that, I'm so also thrilled to say that Andrew Smith has agreed to step up to take the leadership role of the subcommittee. So Andrew is now the chair of the Drug Information Subcommittee leadership team. So I thank you, Andrew, and I look forward to the collaboration and as well as your leadership for the subcommittee. I know you're going to probably say something about that, but I'm going to leave it until we get to the subcommittee report for you to share with us your ideas. Okay, so so now I just wanted to move on to talk about a summary of chair and committee activities. So first is then I incorporated all your slides in this slide deck to talk about your drug interaction initiative updates. So take it from there. Thank you. And
Okay.
just let me know if you want me to change the slide. I'll try my best to read your mind also.
Okay. Yeah. And I think I'll go through this relatively quickly. So let's get on with it. Next slide. Okay. So most of the people on this committee are familiar. Oh, I guess I'll just start by saying that these are slides that were made for the CCDR committee within which this study has been mostly progressing forward. So I gave them a little bit more background about drug interactions, but essentially most people on this committee know about pharmacokinetic and pharmacodynamic drug interactions. And then we did some work within this committee actually showing that SWOG participants have high rates of drug interactions. So we did a retrospective analysis of 0711, 0528, showing that about 30% of patients who were enrolled on those trials had a major drug-drug interaction that was not identified during screening or was not resolved at the very least. Next slide. So that's what led us to launch this drug interaction screening initiative, where we want to develop a drug interaction screening tool that could be used by SWOG staff at the sites to screen drug interactions, and then assess the user satisfaction of the tool, and then try to run a prospective trial where we confirm the benefit of our tool. Next slide. So this is what the tool looks like on the right-hand side. When you open it up, it's essentially just a website. It can be made freely accessible to anybody, and it has obviously a login and password. And then if you go to the next slide. So this is what it looks like when you actually fill it in. On the upper left-hand side is where you put in the drugs that are used on the trial. On the lower left-hand side is where you put in the patient's other current medications. If you click once, I think it'll show you some of the other functionalities that are built in, right? So all the way on the bottom right-hand side is where you can click which enzymes you're interested in. If, say, the protocol says, you know, do not enroll anyone with a CYP2C8 strong inhibitor, then in that medication characteristics screen in the bottom center, it'll show what those CYP2C8 substrates are. You can see their PGP substrates, QTC, interval prolongation, all those kinds of things. In the upper right is where it actually gives you the information about all the drug interactions, like what will happen and the severity. You can see there a level 2 or a level 3. And then in the far upper right, it creates a PDF that if you click again, it'll actually show you what that PDF looks like. Let's go to the next slide. So this is what the PDF looks like, where it shows the trial drugs, the current medication list, the interactions, their severity, and all the other information that you put in on the previous screen. And you can print that out and put it into the patient's profile. So this, we thought, would be a really helpful tool to help with drug interaction screening during clinical trial enrollment. Let's go to the next slide. So then we did a small pilot where we had 12 sites and 13 individuals that used our tool. And you can see that we gave them a range of different statements. So the top 4 being positive statements, the bottom 5 being negative statements. And you can see that overall there was very strong agreement with the positive statements, that they were confident using it, it was easy to use, etc. Very strong disagreement with the negative statements, that it was inconsistent or awkward or too complex, etc. We also asked them about the time required to screen for drug interactions, which was decreased from over 20 minutes to about 7 minutes on average. That was statistically significant. And we also found, importantly, that of the drug interactions that were detected, some of them led to treatment modification, very few actually led to patient exclusion from the trial. So we thought this was helping to resolve interactions without reducing actual enrollment onto clinical trials. So we're very excited about these pilot results. So next slide. So that brought us to our phase 2 prospective implementation study, where we wanted to prospectively demonstrate the benefits of using our tool in terms of decreasing the prevalence of drug interactions in patients who are enrolled on studies. Also, again, looking at the efficiency in terms of the amount of time required to screen patients, and then asking again about user satisfaction. So those are the aims of the prospective study. This is how we're going to do it. It was a prospective sort of quasi-experimental study where we have a pre-implementation period where individuals at each of the different sites would either prospectively or retrospectively give us the information about patients that were enrolled onto SWOG studies that we could use to see what the rates of clinically relevant drug interactions were. Then in that sort of midpoint where it says begin PEPID screening, we would train the individuals and give them access to PEPID, and then they would have a prospective study period where they would collect information from patients. We weren't sure exactly how many sites or staff this would require, but we were approved to include, I think, up to 50 sites and up to, I don't know, 200 staff. So we were hoping that we would have a lot of sites and staff that would be interested in doing this. And this was supported by a Hope Foundation Seed Award. Next slide. So all the data was supposed to be uploaded by the site staff through Qualtrics. There was no PHI being collected. It was just which site, what protocol number, the medication list, the drug interactions detected, and sort of the results of the eligibility screening. We recently got approval to actually pay the site staff for this. So it would be $10 per patient screened in the retrospective period and $20 per patient screened in the prospective period, up to $1,500 that would go actually directly to the staff member, not to the site. So we were hoping that this would incentivize SWOG staff working at sites to want to participate in this study. Next slide. So again, this was all supposed to be done through the ORP staff themselves, not actually through the sites. The sites didn't need to activate this or get IRB approval. All the data collection was done by the staff. The training and the login was done by the staff. So this was all done through the actual ORP staff. And we were hoping to work directly with the ORP staff that were helping out on our pilot study, and then through the sort of ORP group and their leadership to find staff to participate in this study. Next slide. So in summary, we have demonstrated there's a high prevalence of drug interactions in SWOG trial participants. We created our tool and our pilot was very successful. We were able to decrease the time required to screen drug interactions, and there was low rates of trial exclusion. At this point, we still need sites and ORP volunteers to work with our study. We have not been very successful at all in finding sites or staff to participate in this study. The ORP leadership has not been willing to help us find sites. I've thought about working through the Pharmaceutical Sciences Committee and all their sites. My concern is that most of the people on our committee are pharmacists, and if those people are involved in drug interaction screening, then they don't actually need this tool. So I didn't show you the results of a survey that we did where at more than 50% of sites there were not pharmacists involved in drug interaction screening. So I feel like this tool would be superfluous if given to pharmacists, which is what our committee is, but would be very helpful if given to sort of ORP staff like study coordinators, data managers, and nurses. So that's why I haven't tried to recruit through the Pharmaceutical Sciences Committee. As I mentioned, I'm also giving this talk to the CCDR committee to see if they want to help us try to find sites and staff to activate this study. If that doesn't happen, then I think that we'll have to abandon this project and try to brainstorm alternative ways to move forward with this initiative. I'd be happy to take any questions or listen to suggestions.
Hey, Daniel, this is Jane Rogers. I serve on the GI SWOG group. I'm just curious, this is really great. And have you tried to reach out maybe to some of the PIs that have upcoming protocols? Like, for example, GI has a protocol with encorafenib coming up that I wonder if the PI knew about this opportunity, maybe he would share it when the trial started enrollment.
Yeah, Jane, that's really an excellent suggestion. So the purpose of this study was to see if we just sort of implemented this across all studies, then could we show improvements in drug interaction screening? I think we've found that that is, or at least the technique that we've tried to get that going has not been successful. And I don't think that, as I've sort of indicated, there's a viable pathway forward. I think that the alternative, as you suggest, would be to find a single or maybe 2 to 3 protocols and sort of embed this screening within them, either at a subset of sites or activate it after the study is sort of half accrued, or in some way do some kind of a prospective quasi-experimental approach, leveraging a specific study, as you mentioned. So I think that that will be the alternative approach that we consider. We have not tried to do that yet because it's sort of a completely different strategy from how we had conceptualized this study. And really, when we first conceptualized and activated this is right when COVID hit, and we thought that for a while we just let sort of COVID pass and then we'd get a lot of uptake. And that we tried maybe 6 months ago. We thought we'd be sort of clear of COVID and there would be a lot of excitement. And when we didn't get that, that's when we added the incentives, and that has not been successful over the past 2 months. So we're just now at the point where we're considering alternatives, just like the one that you just mentioned. And I think that that will be the next approach, but we need to sort of completely restart, retool, figure out if that will require IRB approval. Does that need to go through sites? Like, we're basically starting this back from square one in terms of what the prospective study looks like. But I think that will be the approach. And I greatly appreciate the suggestion.
Yeah, and with regards to the beacon order sets, like on that committee, it's just kind of like a word draft that we send out outside of the protocol. But when the protocol is activated, it kind of gets sent out as an additional tool, but it's not necessarily embedded in the protocol. I just wonder if this might be kind of an option there too, as the protocol is ready to start enrollment, if that could also be some sort of additional thing. So, but I really think it's great work. So.
Yeah, Jane, it sounds like you have more familiarity with how these order sets actually look and what resources are provided. So how about after I get more guidance from the digital engagement and CCDR committees, which I'm talking to this week. If we do decide to sort of abandon the current initiative, then I'll circle back around to you and see if maybe you and I can brainstorm how best to move forward.
Absolutely. Sounds like a good idea. Because, you know, with that protocol that we just reviewed, you know, a lot of the drug interaction portion, you know, that this group created the verbiage for, you know, it doesn't really provide them necessarily, the research coordinator, like a lot of guidance necessarily. It just kind of points out like certain interactions, but it doesn't say the specific drug. So, yeah, so absolutely we can reach out after.
Yeah, thank you.
So Dan, this is Sufan. As I'm thinking through after listening to your presentation, a couple of questions come up. Should you decide to change the direction of this project by focusing on selected protocol, do you have any thoughts on, for example, would you prefer to have protocols that come from different disease committee? And if any of the property of the study drugs involved in the protocol would also be something to consider for inclusion criteria also.
Yeah, I think that we would prioritize protocols that will be, I guess, large enough that we can collect meaningful data, and our protocols of FDA approved medications with some kind of meaningful drug-drug interaction concern. I think those would be the sort of priorities. I don't think that we would prioritize based on specific tumor subgroups.
Mm-hmm.
I think we'd really just be looking for, as I mentioned, FDA approved agents with drug interaction concerns.
So the drug selected, you're looking for approved agents and not necessarily drugs that has not been approved, even though we know that they have unique or extensive drug-drug interaction.
So the back-end data for our drug interaction screening tool comes from a company that already provides a drug interaction checker, and they would not have non-approved drugs. We have talked with them about how we could build into their system non-approved drugs, and we think that would be one of the coolest and best functionalities, but we have not gotten there yet. And I think that they will not be very receptive to putting more work into their tool when we have not demonstrated an ability to prospectively demonstrate the benefit of their tool, which is sort of what we promised we'd do if they built the tool for us to begin with. So I don't feel like I'm in a position to ask them to put any more work in. If we had to, and we wanted to build in investigational agents and build in the information, I think we could do that, but we'd really have to go to them with a sort of foolproof plan of how we're going to make sure that this achieves its intended goals, because I think that we've not held up our end of the bargain.
Got it. Okay. So if we're successful in getting through this step, that will be a stepping stone for us to go back to renegotiate then.
Yes. And they've been really helpful and really responsive. And I think that we said that this is sort of the baseline tool that we would need just to do our phase 2 study. So I don't want to go back and ask them to make further updates unless it's absolutely necessary.
Right. I agree. Great. Well, thank you for all your great work. I hope you will be able to overcome this challenge and move this forward also. But indeed, this is a very important tool from my perspective. Also, even just based on what Andrew and I have involved in a couple of the intervention with protocol development as SWOG, I would tell you that this will be a very, very valuable and important tool to have available. So let's hope that we can continue to move this forward. And thank you again for the amount of time and investment you have placed in this project, this very important project, particularly relevant to our role as pharmacists also. So thank you, Dan.
Yeah, I guess I would just make one more comment to what you said and what Jane said originally, which is that if we see that there are protocols that are coming through that are in the stage where they might consider adding our tool, I think we should start those conversations sooner rather than later, because I
Mhm.
know that they don't like changing their protocols once they're sort of ready for activation.
Right.
So I think that we could, in parallel, find the right protocols, talk to the PIs, and sort of
Mhm.
design what our analysis would look like. So if you guys have ideas of what those protocols might be that satisfy the criteria that I laid out, let's start putting those together and let's start approaching those individuals.
Good. So I think if that's the case, what I would want to ask our committee members is, if you are involved in any of your disease committee, and particularly early on in the protocol development, when you see a potential opportunity to use this screening tool as part of the protocol, either talk to the PI or contact Dan, if it's okay, Dan, with you, to get Dan involved into introducing the concept to the PI. Perhaps not just waiting for the protocol to be ready to be activated, but maybe we can get in earlier in the protocol development stage, where probably is not as a last minute introduction of something that would potentially stall the progress, right? So that may be something to think about as well.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. And I just would mention that Sufan actually did connect me with Don Dizon, who had a flubanserin study that was going through protocol development, and we had our tool integrated into that protocol, which ultimately ended up not getting approved. So we have sort of tried this before, and
Right.
we thought there was a pathway forward. So we just need to find the right protocol and move forward in that
Yeah.
way.
Right. But I think the good news is it's a good way to introduce the tool to more people in the organization, even though we don't fully have control of where the protocol will go. But certainly you can see that PIs are open to it and they see the value of that. So I would encourage people to think about that when opportunity come up. And we should support each other. And this is really a tool that is very innovative and needed as well. And I really like to see this able to move to the next step of including the non-FDA approved agent, because really that is the area we need most of the support with a tool of this nature as well. So, okay, thank you again, Dan, for all your work, and I hope we'll be able to move this forward. And this is your thank you note. Oh, I should say thank you slide for that. All right. Oh, you have more of that. Did you want to go through some of this?
No, these
Or
are
this is
just extra
something that,
slides.
okay. Okay, so I'm going to fast forward. So there's a couple of committee activities or chairs activities that I wanted to update the group. One of the major ones that we have done recently is policy number 38 updates. So for those of you who don't know, policy 38 has to do with policy. So in May of 2021, we actually have a task force, a few people that I put together with Holly, Joyce, Lee, and Jane Rogers from City of Hope, UC Davis, and MD Anderson, respectively, to really review some of the issues regarding the policy. So this is arose from concern brought up to us by the auditing team from Elaine Armstrong's at the op office for several incidents and questions relating to policy 38 during the site visit. Or audits, I should say. So during the discussion, we realized that there seems to be a lack of consistency among the site investigators in the creatine clearance estimation for patient eligibility assessments. and dosing, dose rounding, and also dose for significant weight change. So most of this occur is really due to the conflict between the policy at SWOG and also the site using their own institutional policy and or software management system that have different setups. So some of this unfortunately resulted in protocol violation. There are also rebuttal from the site regarding patient eligibility, as well as patient safety issues. So based on our findings and consultation also with Matt Boren, our NCI pharmacist liaison, the task force actually summarized our findings and submitted 2 recommendations. So one is we need to do some adjustment on the policy 38, which I'm going to go through that, highlight the major changes. So this policy 38 has been submitted to the Board of Governors to for review and approval this Saturday at this meeting. So keep my finger crossed. And of course, we also hope that people will provide us feedback should they have additional input for us as well. However, on top of that, in addition to the content and the science part, there are also a couple of things that we felt that we wanted to propose as what we call administrative changes. One big one is actually we are asking to change the name of policy number 38. The current title of the policy is Dosing Principles for Patient in Clinical Trials. I think when one look at this title, one would think, oh, this policy only applies after the patient enroll in the clinical trial. However, I do feel that a lot of those information also involved in patient enrollment process or screening. So consequence to that, we are asking to consider the change of policy number 38 title to research calculations for clinical trials to make it more inclusive also. In addition to that, some of you may know that the Statistical Center at Seattle has created a online calculation tool to support for calculations relating to protocol executions. So this is a tool, to me, I find to be very helpful and handy. And most of all is it provide the consistency and reinforce the policy that we have created as well. I think many of you would also agree with me that to conduct good clinical trials, we need to collect consistent, good data. And that consistency is very important. And too much of a deviation can potentially affect our ability to interpret the outcome of the trials. So what we are asking SWOG to consider is really reinforce the use of the tool, and it's created with a lot of hard work from the stats office. And I really feel that the tool will help to promote better trial conduction also. And so this is something that I'm also actively working with the statistical office to make sure all our online, this is the tool actually is a name, I'll call it Tools of the Trade. That's what they name it as. And so this is actually also available on the CRA workbench if you don't have a link and you want to search for it on the website. And it involved like calculation of BSA, conversions of units, as well as creating clearance estimation. So I think we are also expanding this to include some of the unique aspects that require complicated calculation. For example, one of the things that we have worked on this past few years has been a question came through my desk involving how do you calculate ideal body weight for people that are shorter than 5 feet. So we actually went into extensive investigation on this, and I'll share with you what the proposed concept is, and actually has been included in the policy 38 policies already. In addition to that, there has been some drug shortage issue come up, and also how do we manage that with dose rounding in order to minimize drug wastage, etc. So this is all how it all related to what I'm showing you on the next few slides about the policy 38 modification. And then last but not least is we also, once when this is approved, we need to go back and also review some of the other relevant SWOG policies relating to like 12, 13, and 17, and 18 to reinforce all this, the inclusion of the policy 38 in the protocol development. And one of the things is that what we like to do to align with what NCI has been encouraging people to do is the length of the study protocols and to avoid redundancy of information being included in multiple sections of the protocol, because a lot of time the redundancy actually create confusion as well as potentially creating conflicting information for site investigators to follow also. So those are the various background thought process that come into place for us to make that proposal. So with that, I'm going to go back and share with you the content of the adjustment of policy 38 here. So the first thing is that we added a paragraph at the beginning of this policy. Essentially, instead of having you read through all these track changes and things like that, it's just to, I'll summarize it. Basically, this is a paragraph to really highly encourage people to use the online tool, the calculation tool for creating the outcome. And recognizing that oftentimes there can be conflict with the software management system or institutional guidelines. So this is a way to help us to allow more consistent calculations for that. And in addition to that, we're also expanding the horizon. So this one little track changes I did not include comment is pertaining to changing the title of this policy also. And so, and in addition to that, we're also clarifying that, for example, creatine clearance calculation is not just pertain to dosing. The equation should also be used for organ function assessment in patient eligibility determination, etc. also. So the next one is the formula for calculation of ideal body weight. So this is something that I've worked on probably, I think, in 2017. Didn't realize that how unusual this is. Never thought about it much before. And so we end up creating something quite complicated in a sense for our attempt to calculate that. And some of the new term that I have learned, and you can see that the reference is plentiful, that we end up having to use an article published in 2005 to address this issue. So there's a term that we find out that is called fat-free mass. So this is some of the criteria that we came up with looking at both the FFM and the BMI in order to predict for the ideal body weight. So you can see that the calculation of this is rather complex, and of course it increased the risk potentially creating error if we just provide this for the site investigator to plug all this in on their calculator. So consequence to that, so we are actively working with the stats office to really make sure that the BSA calculation or calculator of the two of the tray is set up to address all these different variables also. So this is something that we are working on. And then this was really the main purpose of us putting the task force together in earlier this year on dose rounding. So this has to do with, first of all, in our original recommendation, we said dose rounding is needed in the preparation of the study drug. And we changed some of the verbiage also to avoid some of the confusion that has occurred or something that we learned from the study audit. So the final dose should not exceed a change of plus or minus 5% from the original calculated dose for best practice model. The reason we included that is we actually extended the dose rounding to 10%. The reason for that is because this is the protocol violation parameter set by SWOG as well as NCI. So we really feel uncomfortable defining a different value that is not aligned. Of course, that's why we put the best practice model. If possible, we would like to do that. However, we also recognize that sometimes dose rounding occurs because of drug shortage. So in those cases, the site may feel that they're in a quandary of, okay, so we're wasting a lot of drug potentially for that. And so are we really violating the protocol? So that's the reason why we added on the second sentence. So we said that dose rounding based on drug bio size must be in accordance to the maximum limit of 10%, no more than 10% also, because we have heard people for higher than that. So this is really expanding that to really up to the range of 10% for areas that is unavoidable. So this is where the dose rounding policy modification occurs. And then of course, there's a dose modification during treatment. So we added on that. And part of the reason was because the confusion of the term, the last dosing weight. So really, it didn't change the policy. We're just making the language more clear, we hope. So instead, we are saying the last body weight used for dosing calculation. I think the dosing weight is something that perhaps makes sense to the pharmacist, but we all know that not all the site has a pharmacist involvement. So that's the reason why we modify the language to make it more universal. So again, for the creatine clearance calculation, I don't think policy has changed, although we have changed some of the parameter a while back regarding the serum creatinine number from 0.8 to 0.7, but this change has already been approved. But what we are doing now is to make sure that we are encouraging the use of the creatine clearance calculator. Again, this is available from the two of the trade also for site investigator to use it for both dosing as well as for end organ assessment for during protocol execution or patient enrollment process. So that basically highlight the areas that we have in place for that. So I don't know if anybody has any questions or recommendations or feedback on that.
Dr. Wong, it's Jane. I just had a quick question about the creatinine clearance equation. Would you recommend, as we're reviewing protocols, to recommend adding that for exclusion criteria for creatinine clearance, to add the link if the PI
Yes.
is agreeable.
Yes, actually, I mean, honestly, I think what we would like to see is people don't really necessarily need to put in the equation, even in the inclusion exclusion criteria in the protocol, or patient eligibility screening, etc. It's really just to use the link, because this is a way to promote for consistency, right, in our protocol execution process. Is that what did I answer your question?
Yeah, I was just wondering if it would be helpful to put it in there, but you're saying maybe just make people aware of the website outside of the protocol, right?
You outside the oh, you mean like if there's a form for patient screening,
like in the manuscript where it'll say like exclusion criteria, creatinine clearance of less than 60 or something, for example, is like an exclusion criteria in the protocol. I'm just wondering if you would recommend us use the equation found at this website, or just leave it out of manuscript or protocol drafts that we review.
I think it at some point, if there's creatine clearance involvement, I think it will be good to send people. What I have seen is oftentimes I see a formula being included on the calculation of creatine clearance. I think the way to promote for the use of the online calculator will be just to say creatine clearance. I see what you're saying. Creatine clearance less than 60. And then you can say based on the, and then you can provide the link. Is that what you are referring to?
Yeah, that's
visualizing?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, yes, I agree. I think that will be the way to do it, rather than in writing in the equation itself.
Yeah, just kind of providing the link, like if they want to use
Yes.
the link to help them calculate creatinine clearance.
Yes, yes, I agree.
Maybe having it right there.
Mhm.
Like if the PI is agreeable for us putting it in there.
Yes,
But I
yes.
thought maybe it should be in.
Right, right. Thank you. Okay, so I think there's something else that I have received from the UP office is there is a site now available on the SWOG website. It's called Clinical Research Resources. And in there, there's actually another site that is for research site pharmacists. We've been asked if we can take a look at all this site to see if there's anything that we would like to provide as feedback. So since this is fairly new that came to me, so I'm just going to share with you the site. And I also have to go in and take a look at that in a more detailed manner. So with that, if you can look at it, and if you have any feedback, please go ahead and send it my way. And then I will collect all of them and send it back to the office for them. I think that will probably be the easiest mechanism to do so. So, all right, so I think there's just a few things to think about or to bring it to your attention. One is there's an ongoing dicarbazine drug shortage. So just be aware of that. And I've been working with the study team to address this also. In terms, my understanding is the 200 milligram is in drug shortage, but the 100 milligram can be available on an emergency ordering process. So that's just something to keep in mind for that. And another aspect of that is carvedilol. This is a commercial drug that I have seek for advice for a few of the members in terms of a unique drug acquisition and handling. This is really just as for cost saving that we do that. But recently there's been concern about sites that doesn't have a pharmacist and how they can quote unquote dispense the drug. And because the drug is commercially available, so I think there's a confusion of legal aspect of that. So the way that also I think about that is because this drug is actually provided by the site as a study drug. So does it really need to follow the legal aspect of drug dispensing, or should we be handling like a study drug labeling? So I feel that the letter is the way to go. So that is really the recommendation that we are giving to the site, that really the person who typically handle and manage the accountability and handling of study drug in the site can prepare the Cavadolol vials and give it to the patient. And so, and it doesn't have to be a pharmacist if they don't have a pharmacist on site. The other options that I recommended to them is to, if they are a satellite site, perhaps they can work with their parent institution and see if that can be done. Now, at this point, we can also take advantage of the COVID exemption that drugs can be mailed directly to the patient. So therefore, this is another option to think about, is the parent institution can potentially, if they don't feel comfortable at the satellite site, is the parent institution can process that and mail the drug directly to the patient. So those are the various options to think about. If you are a full-time site pharmacist, or you have encountered such process, and if you have any recommendation or idea, please send it my way, and let's help people to overcome this challenge of that. Last but not least is recently I also get approached on an investigational drug, is N803 for a lung met protocol. So this is a molecule, it's a complex protein, and it's being given as a subcutaneous injection, and I believe it's, I think, 2 or 3 days of that. The process of that was the handling of that. Does the patient needs to come back and get an injection, and where can they prepare the drug? Is this a hazardous drug? And the interesting thing is, the more I look into it, the more confused I get, in the sense that this drug actually has been conducted as a pilot clinical trial for healthy volunteers, except that when I look deeper into all this chemical property sheets of the, I find that there is potential for causing teratogenicity. So to me, I think once when I see that, I would consider that as a hazardous drug, and therefore the drug handling needs to be managed as such. So that was a recommendation, but I just want to share that with the team, that it was a low challenge for me, and I couldn't quite understand how this can be conducted as a pilot trial in volunteer subjects also. So this is just something that with all this immunotherapy being developed, this is something that we will face, and perhaps at some point we do kind of need to take a look at that and provide something in a more formal recommendation, or at least we need to talk about it a little bit more among ourselves to think about how we need to provide the recommendation on that. And again, if you have encountered any of this kind of information in your site, by all means, please share that, and we can do that via email also. So, but I just wanted to bring it up to you as a recommendation for that. Or something to think about. So with that, I'm going to hand over the next section report to Andrew.
Thank you, Sufan. So just a brief introduction about myself. I just finished my 2-year residency at the University of Michigan, where I specialized in investigational drugs and research. And then I accepted a full-time position here at U of M, where I primarily handle expanded access and compassionate use requests, and also handle our audits from external sponsors for our drug in our investigational drug service. And then I also sit on IRB. I'm very excited to be in this role. I'm very appreciative for Sufan for extending the invitation. I recognize that I'm still somewhat early on and have a little bit of a learning curve. So I appreciate everyone's patience as I learn and step into this role. Things have been fairly quiet on the drug information requests. So I imagine as we move forward, we'll be crossing paths as we get requests in the coming months, and we'll be meeting and interacting. So I look forward to meeting you all. Sufan and I had a few kind of points that jumped out at us in the past few weeks. We just wanted to share them with the group about things that came to us and required a little bit of attention, and that could be of worthwhile use to the larger group. For one, there was a protocol with sotorasib, and there was a very clear drug interaction that was in the investigator's brochure and also the approved package insert, where the agent should not be taken with PPIs or H2RAs. They should be avoided entirely. And there was also language about local antacids. So this information was included in section 3, and section 3 was fairly consistent. But then once we got the protocol back and we look at the protocol in its entirety, we noticed a lot of discrepancies. So in the information that was presented, was going to be presented to the patient in their handouts and their wallet cards, there's conflicting information about how to manage these interactions. So I think just a point here is if we are able to lay eyes on the entire protocol, just doing a sweep to kind of make sure that all of the information related to the drug and interactions and administration are consistent throughout. There's another communication related to etoposide that was recently given to us to review. And there were some semantics considerations, I would say. The memo had been drafted to say that etoposide dosing, sorry, backing up, there was an error in the protocol that was identified, and there was a communication going out to address this error in the dosing for etoposide. So the protocol indicated 1 day of dosing, but the intent was 3 days of dosing. And the memo had indicated that this was the FDA approved dose, but actually for the indication that it was being studied for in the trial, it was not FDA approved. So I think just being mindful of the language that's being used, maybe to a non-pharmacist that it may not appreciate the nuances of that, but I think we can all appreciate that there is a difference between saying something is FDA approved versus understanding that it's off-label or investigational. There's also concern with this memo about its implementation and related to the IRB process. And so we needed to make sure that the IRB was aware and had approved that change before that communication could go out to the group or go out to sites. And there's one more example that wasn't included here, but we had another request recently that we were aware that there was a pharmacy manual available for the agent. And in the draft of the drug information section that we were updating, in the previous edition, there were a large discussion about how to prepare the agent. But for our new revision, we removed that and just said refer to the most up-to-date pharmacy manual. So that was an attempt to reduce the information that goes in the protocol and reduce those possibilities of error or duplication. So again, just something to be mindful of if we have agents that are, if they come with pharmacy manuals. So I think that's all the information I have today. And again, I look forward to meeting you all and working with you in the future. Sufan, you might be muted.
Sorry, it took me a while to get that to bar up to unmute myself. So I think, Andrew, what about any of the drug information activities, write-up and things like that? Do you have anything to share? I think it's pretty average, right? About maybe 1 or 2 per month so far.
Yeah, yes,
On
it
an
seems to be the trend, 1 to 2 a month. Again, things have been somewhat quiet recently, but as we receive them, I think I'll work with Sufan to understand how we distribute them and how we assign reviewers. So we haven't had to cross that bridge yet, but I look forward to learning that.
I think, earlier, because of Ader's email setup at University of Colorado, we have shifted the sharing of the information to SharePoint. I think, maybe this is also a time to ask the group if the SharePoint has been working well, that we can continue on using the same system or the process, especially for the reviewer also.
This is Jane. I like the SharePoint edition and keeping everything housed there.
Mm-hmm. Great. Joyce, I know you have done quite a bit of review. Has it worked well for you?
Yeah, I like the SharePoint. I think that's a really easy to use, and I think it's a central place that we can easily get access to documents, and I really like it.
Do you guys feel that we should expand the utility of the SharePoint of some other activities as well for kind of review or share information? Or do you think email is better?
So, Sylvan, do you mean like share document in terms of like the drug section writing, like the IBs and stuff, or what kind of?
No, I'm actually thinking of additional, right? So we have been using it for drug information composing, like section 3 and section 7, drug interaction, etc. But like, for example, just now, earlier, I shared some of the new clinical research resource site for review. I'm wondering if we can create a document in there, just like how we can create a Google Doc. So as we review the site and we have feedback, should we use the SharePoint to create a document, and therefore everybody can just put in their ideas or comments and things like that using the SharePoint. And then at the end, I would just pull that out and then submit that to the office for our committee feedback on those areas. And it can also be policy in review, change, or whatever. Or should we just keep that separate and just purely use the SharePoint for drug information, and then for all the others, just handle the business by email?
I think I personally do prefer SharePoint because I think that will be more consistent, and I kind of know that is the version or the copy everybody's looking at instead of emails, and things get lost, or I'm like not work on like the latest versions, and then it's kind of more confusing. And also I don't know if certain times like whether people change their emails or something, so I think we want to make sure that everybody get the information. So I think it's probably more reliable to be in the SharePoint, but I'm happy to hear other member what they think.
Yeah, I would
Holly, what do
completely
you
agree
think?
with that too, because also we're used to using it now by using the SharePoint site. So I think if we had everything housed in the same place, that would be super helpful, because just emails sometimes get lost too. You think that you flagged it and then you didn't. So.
So I'm looking at the names: Holly, Rivka, Coco. Do you guys agree? I'm just quickly picking out the names on the list right now. So if I miss you, please forgive me.
This is Holly. I'm flexible, whichever format.
Okay. Coco, do you have any preference?
Oh, okay. Sorry, I tried to unmute myself. Yeah, I think both works because I can recognize both. They have their, the strengths. For example, when I work with my fellow, we are using the Google Docs because that's we can see each other's comments very quickly, and we can also discuss. Even we can work something at the same time. But also I also recognize the SharePoint is very good kind of like the resources, that's help us to organize and keep all those very important documents, especially the document for our reference, also for the tracking record. So
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. So I think, Andrew, maybe we can offline sort of think about this and see how we can set up the SharePoint for the committee. Okay, great. So I think the next item under the Drug Information Subcommittee report is really just to hear feedback from the residents as well as program directors regarding having the trainees do the write-up, the process and things like that. If there's anything that we need to be aware of to provide better support or streamline the process, etc. So it'll be Andrew and Coco as the program directors for that.
Again, from my perspective, it's gone well and it's a very beneficial aspect of our program. I would ask the reviewers who reviewed our work if they have any feedback or anything that we could do to improve the process, or any additional training that you feel would benefit the residents and fellows as learners to make the process better and easier for you when you review our work.
So the reviewers, do you, if you have reviewed any of the drug information section from the residents, any feedback? Is it running okay for you guys?
This is Joyce. I've been working a lot with Andrew before, and so I have to say that they are very, very helpful, and the review and the sections that they wrote are very thorough. So I think it's a pleasure to have them and working with the committee. Yeah, I really enjoy working with them. I think they do really good work.
Thank you.
I concur. Great. So I guess the process is working okay also, because we primarily use the SharePoint to share the actual information, but a lot of communication occurred via email. And I think it seems like it is working fairly smoothly, and we are complying with the timeline of completions and things like that from what I can see. So I again want to take this opportunity to thank you, all of you, the writers as well as the reviewer, for your effort and time and dedication to make this committee work well on that. Thank you. So the last item on the Drug Information Subcommittee is the protocol review activities. Holly, you have any information to share with us?
Required, so I don't have any requests.
Holly, can you speak a little bit louder?
Yeah, so it's been quiet on the hematology side. I don't have any related requests since the last meeting.
Okay, so you haven't been receiving information on that? I mean, or requests?
Receive new protocol
requests. Okay, okay. So I know Crystal. I don't know. Yes, Crystal. Do you know if we need to do some? I know that there have been protocols being processed. Are we not in the process of review anymore?
No, you should still be in the process of review. We do have a lot of new protocol coordinators. So I will need to check our CC list to make sure that Holly is still included on those reviews.
Yeah, I think it's Holly and George Avila.
Correct.
I think Holly is the liquid side, right? Leukemia and lymphoma, and George is the solid tumor protocol. Am I correct, Holly?
Correct. That's correct.
Yeah, I think, you know, this is seems to be more relevant for the reason of some of the activities that Andrew and I have involved in. We actually find that there are other spots in the protocol that really has drug information, and we have identified some contradicting informations and things like that. And some of those are actually document that goes directly to the patient. So I do feel that that's another reason why I bring that up as well, to make sure that we have an opportunity to review the protocol before it goes out, just to make sure. Yeah, so if you can look into it, that will be very helpful for us, Crystal. Thank you. Okay, so the next item is the beacon. Jane, do you have any update for us on the standardized order set?
Yeah, so we've had a couple other protocols that have come through in the GI group that we've drafted these order set examples. Those haven't started enrolling yet, but they should go along with that. The issue is that the person that had this idea, so Kathy Ng, she was the vice president of the GI working group, or vice chair, I'm sorry, and she has since left the GI working group because she's now on the steering committee. So I think it kind of leaves it a little bit like I need to reach out to the chair and the vice chair of the GI group to see if this is something they want to continue to move forward with in that committee, or is it something that perhaps we could take over. So it's a little bit up in the air right now. So since she just left, so not too much to update. We also haven't sent a survey to find out, you know, if the site found it useful or not, because of that transition that she transitioned off and kind of left hanging a little bit. So I think I need to work at reaching out to the chair and vice chair of the new vice chair to see if this is something they want to continue to own, or is it something that they would just be okay with, you know, someone else owning it.
So has the order set been implemented in at all?
We've had one protocol that we developed the order set example, like it's on a Word document that was sent out when the protocol was officially to start enrolling as a separate attachment. So we had one so far go forward. So that was the one that I think we could try to get some survey results on, to see, you know, what sites actually opened up that protocol at their site, and if they noticed the order set example, and then if they used it, if it helped at all.
Right. Okay. So so then maybe you can answer this question also. For what Jane mentioned, that they wanted to send out a survey to find out if this order set is helpful for the site, just to get kind of more like a user satisfaction, right, survey. Does that needs to go through the digital engagement committee, or how does that work?
You know, I'm not really sure, because it was an idea that Dr. Ng had, was for us to survey the GI people that serve on the GI committee to see if they found it useful. but I honestly don't know. So I could start with maybe asking the chair and vice chair of the GI group, where they want to take this.
Right.
And if they decide they don't want to do much with it, maybe I can reach out to you and see what you feel about whether we want to, adapt it under our committee or.
Yeah. No, actually, I mean, the question I have is because I think that a lot of surveys going through, even though I think the survey that you are thinking about is really just to find out how to get some feedback from the site, right? I'm just curious, and so that's why I also want to ask Dan, because he sits on the Digital Engagement Committee, which is directly involved in survey executions at SWOG. So I was just curious as if a survey of this nature is considered as a official survey, or this is just something that the disease committee can just send it out to the selected site, because obviously it only goes to the site that is using the order set to get some feedback. And so Dan, do you have any input on that or advice?
Yeah, my understanding is that if you are surveying like SWOG staff or SWOG members about things that are more, how do you differentiate this? So things that would be like, are studies of interest to them, or do they want things to work in a certain way within SWOG? That does not have to go through the SWOG survey process. It's only if you are asking them about sort of current practice or their beliefs about something, or things that are actually being done more for research purposes and less for, I guess, QI, QC.
Okay, and I also see a comment that Crystal posted that if the survey is committee related and there are no publication intents, it does not need to go through the DE committee review. So it's not, and I think then that's sort of aligned with your feedback also. So that's good. I just want to make sure, just because I'm hearing a lot of the survey management occurring at SWOG, I just wanted to make sure to provide Jane some current information on that. So I think we're good to go, Jane, for you.
Yeah, that's super helpful. Thank you so much. Like I'm not really sure on all the workings of everything, so I appreciate that. And then I can report back.
Okay, great, thank you. And I think it will be good to find out, and I think the feedback will be very helpful, because that is the data that oftentimes helps to extend the utility of that beyond a certain committee also, right?
Yeah, so it'll help us to see if it is something to continue to pursue, I think.
Yep. Absolutely. Thank you. So the next item is Digital Engagement Committee. Dan, do you have any update to report?
The Digital Engagement Committee has been trying to help with the drug interaction screening tool, because that's considered to be a digital device. So I'll be talking with them next about where we are and the plans for moving forward. Otherwise, a lot of their work up to this point has been focused on sort of social media and digital engagement in that sense, although there is a subcommittee that is being formed to look at digital, like health IT type tools that are offered by companies or available through companies, and how maybe we can try to partner with certain companies to integrate those types of digital tools within studies.
Interesting. Okay, great. Thank you. So the next item is actually, I'm going to skip the committee webpage unless somebody has comment or feedback on that. I have to admit, I have not had the opportunity to really invest time to review the committee webpage and for its update. I will try to do that in the next, before the next group meeting, and see if we need to, what we need to update on that also. There's been some personnel change on the website aspect. So, so I think Frank now is person in charge for now, I think, temporarily. So I will take a look at that, and then I will report back to the committee next time. So the next is the on pharmacist liaison. I just wanted to make sure that I am providing the most updated pharmacist liaison assignments. And this is from the last update is in July 26th of this year. So please take a look at this and let me know if it needs to be updated further or change. And I'm also thrilled that with the new members, please take a look. And if there's any particular area of interest, please let me know. And then I can put you on as a liaison. So the liaison, this list is actually shared with the office. And the expectation is that you will be included in the many of this disease committee has a conference call in between group meetings also. And this is an opportunity to really learn about what the committee plans are and engage early in the protocol development, etc. And knowing what to anticipate from each of this committee, maybe to be better prepared for new drugs that comes along and things like that as well. And I would highly encourage that if you are at a site where there is a special interest in a particular group now. So Jane, I'm going to use you as an example. For example, Jane is with the GI committee. So she becomes the primary pharmacist liaison for the GI committee because she is working very closely with the group, which really helps for that. And another example will be Joyce, because she's at UC Davis, which is where many of the lung cancer investigators are located. And so therefore, she is the primary liaison. So some of this assignment is based on that. And Holly at City of Hope is a natural choice for leukemia and BMT. So if you are at a site or you have special interest in a particular disease state, please let me know and I would add your name. You can see that there are a few blanks that needs to be completed. And there are also people on there that are not as active as they used to. So therefore, a replacement of that will also be helpful as well. So don't limit it by just looking at the blank boxes available. But if you have any specific disease committee that you are interested in, please send me an email and let me know, and then I can manage it from my end from here. So, so with that, I'm just going to open up the floor for any new items or anything that people wanted to bring in up discussion. Okay, with that, then I think that wraps up our committee meeting for this meeting. And I will report back to all of you on some of the issue or items that is in progress. And thank you again to all of you for your time and effort and commitment and volunteering your time. I highly appreciate that, and I look forward to continue to work with all of you. Thank you and have a wonderful day. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, thank you.